In the beginning, training in emergency management started with a bang. The year, 1949, and the Soviet Union exploded an atomic bomb. The Cold War was on, and the American public wanted to know what their government was going to do to protect them from nuclear weapons. In response to the public's concern, in December of 1951, President Truman issued an executive order to create FCDA, the Federal Civil Defense Administration. One of the key components of this executive order mandated that the federal government provide training to state and local government officials. Exactly how this training was going to be provided was another question. FCDA and Congress determined the best way to do this was to create an educational facility whose mission was to provide civil defense training. On April 1, 1951, the National Civil Defense Training Center opened in Olney, Maryland. It consisted of two schools, the Civil Defense Staff College and the Rescue School. By the end of 1951, the Staff College had given 25 courses to state and local administrative personnel. Through the early 1950s, the Cold War escalated. More powerful bombs were built, and new, faster jet aircraft along with guided missiles were developed to carry and drop the bombs. Washington, D.C. was considered to be the Soviets' prime target. This led to the decision in 1954 to move the nation's civil defense assets, including the Staff College, to Battle Creek, Michigan. The Staff College's curriculum from the mid-1950s through the early 1970s was technical in nature and heavily oriented towards nuclear attack preparedness and response. The Staff College also educated thousands of students in extension courses offered through 52 participating universities. Their courses were also offered through regional offices and the states and through self-paced correspondence courses in its home study program. Through the 1960s and 70s, the national concern for nuclear war, and therefore the need for civil defense, was waning. The concept of dual use came into play.
Before, when it was just nuclear crisis relocation or civil defense, if you wanted to do anything to support a natural disaster, you had to come up with some justification that it supported being prepared for a nuclear attack.
By the mid-1970s, it became apparent that local civil defense directors needed more than just technical training to perform their jobs. The Staff College introduced its Career Development Program, best known as Phases 1 through 4, to educate and prepare the civil defense director for the career challenges that were evolving. These courses not only dealt with program knowledge, they focused on management and communication skills so the civil defense director could operate more effectively in their communities and coordinate with other officials.
It was wonderful. To be able to go to the training at Staff College was really an honor to be accepted into the course there. It was always a 2-week course, which was wonderful because it gave us enough time to basically assimilate the information and meet people from all over the country.
In 1979, President Jimmy Carter combined portions of the federal government agencies and departments which held responsibility for emergency and disaster-related functions into one agency. The Federal Emergency Management Agency was born. 2 of these components operated large training programs. The Defense Civil Preparedness Agency ran the Battle Creek Staff College. The U.S. Fire Administration had its National Fire Academy. Interestingly, the Fire Administration had just purchased a college campus in Emmitsburg, Maryland, as a home for the academy. In the summer of 1979, it was announced that the Staff College would move from Battle Creek, where it would share the Emmitsburg campus with the Fire Academy. With the move and expanded mission came a name change. Staff College became the Emergency Management Institute. Actually, most of us were very, very happy about the idea of the move. It was exciting. And what we were really excited about, more than just the physical move from Battle Creek to Emmitsburg, we were excited about having a broader mission to work with. You know, we were very, very centric to nuclear war issues and nuclear war preparedness. And but we knew that the real bread and butter of emergency management wasn't that. Most of us knew it was floods and tornadoes and earthquakes, hazmats, train wrecks, plane crashes, whatever. and that by coming to EMI and the new expanded mission of FEMA, we were going to be able to get into that. In the months before EMI opened its doors at its new campus, there were almost constant meetings to address how it would serve the new expanded mission of FEMA, what topics the new curriculum would address, and how training would be delivered to the bigger and broader audience it now served.
We used to call this agency the Federal Eternal Meeting Agency. We had one meeting right after the other trying to go through the whole myriad of training that we wanted to do, who was able to do it, who was able to help us develop it, and how we were going to field it to the people out in the field that actually needed the training.
EMI held its first course, Radiological Emergency Preparedness, in January of 1981. Many more courses would follow, including the first course that was developed at the new EMI campus in Emmitsburg.
But one of the first courses that we as a team actually built on campus was the Disaster Recovery Operations course. So it was a little bit different going from theory to actual application in the field, where people could learn how to run a disaster assistance center, how to do public information, a lot of the other things that may not have been covered in applications in the curriculum that we had from Battle Creek.
At the same time EMI offered its first course in 1981, Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president. That administration wanted to move EMI from teaching about emergency management to training on how to manage emergencies and disasters.
We brought on board a lot of people to build, for instance, the Integrated Emergency Management course, the whole course series that we literally stole from California Specialized Training Institute. We brought some of their people in who helped us build those kinds of courses. It was a classroom application that none of us were familiar with. And it's really turned into be one of the flagships of the Emergency Management Institute since that time.
When we assembled, I think, 50 subject matter experts from around the country, had a series of meetings all throughout the summer, all emergency management disciplines. But the end result was that we conducted these exercise-based training courses. We're taking the training objectives that are taught in the classroom and then reinforcing those objectives through an exercise.
By far the greatest innovation in the use of new technologies to deliver training started in the late 1980s. Computers had moved from the massive mainframes to people's desks, where they could send messages to one another, play compact discs, and hook up to something new called the Internet.
The Internet made it possible not to have dedicated systems that people had, where you had to come to a computer center to take a course, like in the old days of computer data center and the learning systems they had. Now anybody could have access to it through the Internet, and as the bandwidth increased, we were able to add more value to it and more interest to the products. We could embed videos into it. We could have more opportunity for interaction with the students. The cost per enrollment was something like less than a cent, Pete, at the end for that. Can you imagine that? We're training people awareness level for the National Response Plan for less than a penny a piece. The distance learning piece of that skyrocketed, so here's 3,000 on campus, 50,000 maybe by the states, and by the way, 1 million people who are enrolling in our distance learning courses each year. It was a very dramatic increase, and something that I think was important not only for EMI but for the agency and for the government.
Training is often considered to be a way to improve the performance of people and organizations. In the late 1980s, EMI was called on to help improve FEMA's response to major disasters.
FEMA was responding to criticism for performance that didn't meet expectations following Hurricane Hugo, following the Loma Prieta earthquake, 1989, and then following Hurricane Andrew. From '96 on, we began training FEMA disaster workers not as an additional duty or as some place for them to come to take the training, but as a central part of our business, to the point that by 2001, half of our work was dedicated to training FEMA staff. We had really changed this organization's focus from looking exclusively outward to looking half outward and half inward. And so we were and continue to be the main training organization for FEMA's disaster workforce.
As time went on, our mission, number of courses, and audience grew. In 1998, EMI began to serve a new audience, Native American tribes.
The majority of tribal communities in this country continue to face some very serious issues. High unemployment, low income, poor health care, suicide rates that are double or triple that of the national average. So the tribal curriculum was designed to help empower tribal communities by working with Native people, for Native people, to help their communities be resilient and not just survive, but to thrive.
Professionalizing the field of emergency management has been one of EMI's missions back to its days in Battle Creek, Michigan. One thing officials in this field lacked was a degree in emergency management from an accredited college or university. In the early 1990s, FEMA selected EMI to set out to address that issue and partner with higher education.
One of the real significant accomplishments of the Emergency Management Institute is the establishment of the higher education program. In 1993, when this program was started, there was one program in higher education in emergency management and 2 certificate programs. Today, there are hundreds of programs in the field of emergency management at higher education institutions, including doctorate, bachelor, master's level programs, certificate programs, and specialty research certificate programs.
Over the past 60 years, we have strived to provide training to meet the needs of emergency managers and the people they serve. But where are we now, and where are we going?
Since we started this federal training program in 1951, there have been 22 million individual course completions in emergency management training, 15 million course completions since 1981 on this campus in independent study computer-based training alone. This program has taken a curriculum since 1981 from 40 courses when we moved here from the Civil Defense Staff College to over 560 unique courses across the broad spectrum of emergency management. One of our big key initiatives for the future is the establishment of an Emergency Management Academy. In the past, the Emergency Management Institute has had an open curriculum, but this academy is going to be targeted toward new emergency management officials or officials in other fields who are now entering into emergency management. It's going to provide foundational level training across the broad spectrum of emergency management, such topics as the science of disasters, planning, the implementation of plans, exercises, development and deployment, leadership capability and decision making, and other areas, so that all those individuals entering this field will have a key understanding at an entry level of the field as they begin to work. The Emergency Management Academy is established to make us respond quicker, recover better, and build more disaster-resistant communities.
In looking over the past 60 years, one theme is apparent. EMI has always responded quickly and effectively to the threats to our nation and the needs of the people we serve. Just look at the record. From the threat of nuclear war in the 1950s to concerns about nuclear power plants in the 1970s. When SARA Title III was passed in the 1980s, we developed a series of hazardous materials courses. Through the 1990s, EMI delivered mitigation training to make more people safe from natural disasters and reduce the loss of property. We made it a top priority to improve the skills of FEMA's disaster response and recovery workers to better serve people adversely affected by disaster. After 9/11, our training quickly focused on the threat of terrorism and what emergency management and response personnel needed to know about this new threat. Now the Institute is moving to improve the professionalization of emergency management by creating a career-long training model that includes degrees from colleges and universities and specialized training from EMI. We could not do all of this alone. We feel fortunate to have the support and participation of professional organizations like the National Emergency Management Association, the International Association of Emergency Managers, and of course, federal, state, local, and tribal emergency management officials. They and others have helped us build and deliver the 566 courses we offer today. Our mission is to make all of America more resilient and therefore safer by providing training. This is who we are, what we do and what we will continue to do at the Emergency Management Institute.